Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. As always, I'm just gonna let a couple of moments go by so we can allow folks who are joining us in person filter into the webinar. And if you're watching from home, thanks so much. Get yourself in a good mindset on whichever time of day you are consuming this. And as I always like to say, feel free to enjoy this starting slide and yeah, get excited for the good chat we're gonna have. I know I'm excited. Are you excited, Katya?
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely, my pleasure. Well, so we'll go ahead and start. My name is Gemma Quinn, and it is my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Alumni and Affinity Engagement here at Cal State Long Beach to welcome you all to this edition of the 49er Industry Chat Series. A couple of quick housekeeping items. Just got to let everyone know that this session is being recorded. So, really, what that means is that it's going to be available to you again on demand for you to watch again, share it with a friend or a colleague or anyone you feel is going to get something good out of it. And so since this is a webinar format, though, for those of you who are live, you have the ability to use that Q&A box at the top of your screen to submit any questions that you might have for our guest speaker today. And I'd encourage you to submit, right? Don't wait till the last second. If a question pops into your head, go ahead and put it in the Q&A and we'll make sure it gets on over to her. And as a part of our series, uh, in recognition of Mayor Rex Richardson's initiative, Grow Long Beach. This semester, we're doing a focus on the 49er industry chats on hospitality and tourism as an industry, which is one of the industries that Grow Long Beach is aiming to bolster in our community. So, as a part of this specialized series, we are super excited to welcome Katia Wakasugi. Welcome, Katia. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate the time and happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, let me just read a little bit. Let me read out your bio there, so that way everyone can get to know a little bit about you, and then we'll get into questions. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. So, a hospitality professional with over 12 years of experience driving customer satisfaction and company success. Katia is a dedicated leader known for fostering positive work environments. Expertise spans hotel operations, sales, training, and development, HR, and employee labor relations. From leading front office operations to championing employee growth and consulting on key operational decisions, Katia pursues excellence in all areas stakeholder, employee, and financial while prioritizing a fair and kind workplace. I love that fair and kind workplace. I think that is that's just a great way to lead, right? And a great way to start out any sort of working relationship. So I think that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Have to have the kindness in there, right? Does it you can't succeed unless, people feel happy at work and that starts with kindness.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's take it back. Let's rewind a little bit, jump into our first question here, which is tell me a little bit about you and your background and your experiences and what your life was like that led you to be a CSULB student in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. So, gosh, okay, taking me back a little bit here, but I have to say, I grew up in this general vicinity. My sister and brother both went to Cal State Long Beach. And funny enough, I actually was like, nope, not going to do it. Right. I'm going to go a different path. I'm going to break away from the norm. But ultimately, when I went to go do my tours, I realized CSULB was just such a great campus. And close to home. So my family was happy and just, it was just great. As soon as I hit campus, I just felt like, all right, I belong here. I felt happy coming to campus. And so I eventually, got accepted. And, what's funny is that CSULB is actually I had a student counselor that actually helped lead me to hospitality. And I am forever
Oh,
grateful to that counselor. I apologize. I don't even remember her name anymore, but I remember going in I think it was my freshman year. After the first semester, and going in and saying, I was undeclared at the time. I thought I wanted to get into business. Math is not my strong suit. And so I, just kind of chatting it out with her. And she mentioned, she's like, well, sounds like based off of your skills and what you like doing, hospitality seems like a best bet. And I never once thought about that career, right, as it being something I wanted to pursue. I actually, to a point, and no offense to any of our other hospitality majors out there or anything, but I would tease and I would say, oh, I got my major in being friendly, right? Because, in being hospitable and taking care of others. Um, but now, and I still like to make that joke every once in a while, because I just know how much deeper it is, right? How much more you can do with a hospitality degree than you might think. And so, so that's how I ended up at CSULB. That's how I ended up in the hospitality program. And I'm so, so grateful for it, because now, feeling pretty confident and successful in my path. And I wouldn't have been able to do it had it not been steered in that direction at Cal State Long Beach.
no, for sure. And I think that's so great. And I'd love to hear more about what your experience at Cal State Long Beach was like. I mean, it sounds like you were undeclared, you had some peer mentor that steered you, so that's really great. But I mean, as far as, you know, particular clubs or activities that you were involved in, or professors or classes that you felt were like particularly formative, what was your student experience like while you were a student?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. So, I'll be honest. I wish I would have gotten involved way more than I had. And now, in retrospect, I don't think I would have changed anything. I don't regret anything, right? But in retrospect, I see how, had I gotten more involved, had I put more emphasis and importance on that networking opportunity at that stage, I see it now in the day to day in my professional environment, that would have been far. It would have helped me in so many different ways, right? Because I stayed in touch with some colleagues, I stayed in touch with some professors and whatnot, but not to the extent to where I wish I could have. And I see how my colleagues, my classmates, that I shared the classroom with at CSULB, how they've been able to maybe leverage some of those relationships that they had built at CSULB. And I see things on LinkedIn, or I keep in touch. And so I have to say, if I could go back to 18-year-old me, right, and have a conversation with her, it would absolutely be, hey, that's great that you're working in the industry, but go back and really focus in on your studies, right? Really focus in on the things that you can learn and take away from that classroom setting beyond just the learnings, right? Beyond the academics. Um, but I will say, that all said, even though I was already working in the industry, I learned so much in the hands-on classroom settings, right? So of course, we were learning more about just in general management, kind of just how hotels work and management. But I remember a handful of classes in particular that really, really helped me. So there was one, and I forgive me that I don't remember her name, but it was a hands-on where you actually do the banquet, right? So you're actually getting in the
Mhm.
group setting, and you end up hosting a banquet, but you have to do all the prep, the concept for the meal, the expectations of what, for the customers and for the clients. And that was amazing. Group activities, as much as we don't like them, oh my gosh, that's life, right?
Yeah.
So, especially in the hotel world, your hotel will not run effectively unless you can have solid teamwork, right? And that class, I have to say, or that lab, right, really kind of helped guide that path for when I got into those settings in the workplace. I was able to kind of, without knowing it, go back and go, oh, okay, wait, I remember, this is how you motivate that person differently, or that was, it's okay to delegate, right? All of those things. It still to this day, I think back to, we made these shaved strawberry rice balls, and I like still remember the execution of it. It was, getting all the props for the set. So I have to say that was definitely one. And I could probably go on for days, but the other one I really want to highlight is when we had teachers or professors who actually were in the industry, right?
Mhm.
That I'm not familiar with any other program at CLCLB, so I can't speak to that. But I know for certain hospitality, the hospitality program has several professors that work in the industry. And I found that to be the most impactful because they're telling me stories from last night, right? They're telling me stories from the day before about, what they were able to execute against, or a customer that they came, across with. There's so many factors that came into play there that really helped me, understand it beyond the book, so to speak, right? And really helped kind of paint the picture of what opportunities I had within the hospitality industry. So yeah, so all that said, definitely wish I would have gotten more involved. Again, even if it's not something you're like fully interested in, the networking piece. I'm sure you've seen it, Jenna, right?
Oh,
You're
absolutely.
connecting with CFULB students or alum who are GMs, who are F&B directors, who are, you name it, right? Well, these are the people I shared my classroom with, right? I wish I would have known them more
Exactly.
then, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that that's one of the things that we always try and emphasize, right? Like, look around, the people that are sitting next to you. These are your peers. These are your colleagues. Like, you know, e even 20 years from now, right? Like, these folks are going to be the folks that you're having those connections with are going to be really important. So, yeah, no, thanks for highlighting that. That's awesome.
Hey, I'm speaking truth here. That was definitely my experience.
Yeah, that's fantastic. But it sounds like you were already working in the industry, right? So you were a working student.
I was,
Yeah.
yes.
So how was balancing that? Balancing, working and doing classes and writing papers and all that kind of stuff.
It was tough. It was definitely difficult, and um, it's one of those things that I both valued, and had I, yeah, again, if you could replay anything, maybe I would have changed a few things here and there, but um, balancing that is just making sure that you understand, your own boundaries, understand what you're able to do and who you can lean on, right? It's okay to ask for help and to ask for support. And that was huge because at the time I had to do it on both hands. I had to do it with my professors at school, and I also had to do it in the workplace. But because I was showing, effort, and I was showing that I want to move forward. I want to continue my schooling. I knew I wanted to graduate. I wanted to also continue my work experience. I wasn't going to drop either one. I really put in the effort to show that I wasn't asking for support or help just cause, right? It's because I needed it at the time. And so it was an open dialogue with I'll start with the career side, open dialogue with my manager and saying, this is where I may need support. How can I make this a compromise on both ends? How can we make this a win-win? And so in many cases, my leadership was able, because hospitality is so flexible, I was able to switch my days. So I'll come in on the Friday, Saturday when it's busy, if I can get that Tuesday, Thursday off, so I can jam pack it with my school, right? And having that open dialogue with my leader and really just killing it at work when I was there, I think was really helpful. Similarly, I'm not gonna lie, and I'm sure if you were to ask CSULB teachers about me, they may have some thoughts and opinions, right? Because there were times that I'd have to go back and say, you know what, I didn't finish the paper, or I'm struggling to turn in this assignment, and I found that I was met with a lot of empathy because these teachers understood what it was to be in the field, right? They didn't give me a break, right? I'm not saying that they just were like, "Oh, don't worry, Katia, it's okay," but they were able to work with me to determine, what's the best path forward and how can I move forward with it. I'll tell you from the get-go though, um, you know, I wish I would have put more effort into the academics. Because now wanting to go back and get my master's degree and to move forward, it's like I know I have to go back and kind of clean up some things that need cleaning up. But all of that to say is that, don't get discouraged, right? I think that was a big thing. There are plenty of times when I wanted to throw in the towel academically, but I knew that, I would be able to make it through and I'd be supported along the way. So.
That's fantastic. And hey, it, grad school is a different beast, so I'm gonna encourage you anyway.
Yes, yes.
And which kind of brings up you know the well, we'll come back to that one. I'll put a pin in that one. I'm gonna go back to it, but let's start with that first role outside of CSULB. Like once you did graduate, right? What did that next step look like for you? You're already working in the field, but how did you find that next step up now that you were, someone with a degree?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I had very, very open, transparent dialogue with the workplace, right? So I started as a front desk agent in 2011. I graduated from Cal State Long Beach in 2015, right? I was able to get connected with, well, I ensured that while I was a front desk agent, I made my leaders, fellow, coworkers, whoever it may be, aware that I was going to school for this, right? This was my passion. This was something I wanted to pursue. Not in a, so you have to promote me tomorrow type way, but in a, how can I continue to grow really with that growth mindset, right? Of what can I do here in the workplace to further my career, further my education, so forth and so on, right? So by the time I graduated in 2015, I was able to actually secure a front office manager position. And so with that years of experience, I actually did the front desk agent, which mind you, let me say, as a front desk agent, I was a shuttle driver. I was an in-room dining, like room delivery. We did lobby attendant, gift shop, right? Like we did everything, and I was happy to, right? Because and then that way I was learning the different components of how a hotel runs, right? And then also showing my leadership that I wanted to grow and I wanted to develop. Once I got into that front office manager position, and I had my degree, I have to say it was still a bit of a shocker, right? It was still a bit of a um, you know, okay, now I'm in the real world, so to speak, right? Um, I did feel prepared academically. Like I could sit there and do a P&L like no one's business because we had sat in the classroom and gone through those so much, right? But sometimes upset guest comes up to you and you're just like, whew, like deer in the headlights, not sure what to do, right? Because that's some of that in the field experience that you just have to learn and grow and develop. All in all, I think that once I got into that front office manager position, it was important to understand that while I had a degree and I did have some years of experience, I needed to remain deferential to, senior leadership, of course, but also, you know, ensure that I was staying humble enough, right? That my degree didn't mean that I automatically had the um, path line where I didn't have to work hard, if that makes sense. Right. And so it was fun, I have to say, once I'm sorry, I'm kind of sidetracking here a little bit, but I think you know, everything I learned at CSCLB did set me up for success, but I needed to make sure I didn't go in with a chip on my shoulder. If that, if you understand kind of what I mean there, right? Is that I still had to work hard. I still needed to put in my time. To show that I had also the drive and the experience in the workplace to support any other promotions from there.
Well, so you have also been in the world of hotels all over the place. So, I mean, could you like just take a moment to walk us through like the different roles that you had and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Jenna. So, yeah, so that's probably the fun part, right? The path, the journey. Because when you sit back and you look at that, oh my gosh, how did I go from this to this to this? It's not, there's some strategy behind it. I'd like to think, maybe, kind of. But that's the fun of hospitality, is that you can really do anything. So front desk, as I said, all the things that I did at the front desk, shuttle driver, the whole thing. Then I did human resources, and as human resources, I was a coordinator, so I wasn't really doing the hard hitting stuff. I got to do more of the associate relations, right? So that's the Associate Appreciation Week, the special dinners, the Easter party. So it was almost like an event manager kind of, or event coordinator type of role. So that really helped open my eyes, because I had to work with our events team to kind of put on some of these associate engagements. So that really opened my eyes to, okay, there's this whole other world of events in the hospitality industry, right? From HR, I went into an assistant front office and food and beverage manager. And so now that's a whole other beast, right? So now I'm working with our breakfast dining, our lounge bar, and our dinner, which, mind you, if you haven't noticed already, running a breakfast restaurant versus running a dinner bar lounge, completely different, right? Different type of people, different type of servers, different goals that they have, right? So it was cool to see that interaction. And it helped open my eyes to understanding the systems, right? The micro system, understanding tips and motivation in food and beverage is very different than motivators for like your front desk agent or your like more office worker, right? From front office, then I got into training and development. And so now from the training and development world, that one I like to say was a strategic move. And from front desk, I didn't really know where I wanted to go next. And so in talking to my senior leaders, and even reaching out to previous professors at CSULB, because I wanted to keep in touch and kind of see where they saw things moving. They were able to kind of help guide and understand like what my strengths were. And I was the cheerleader, right? That's what they called me. I was the, okay, guys, we're working on this next project, or hey, let's, kudos on getting good guest scores or whatever it was. That they said, hey, look, there's actually this whole other department within our corporation that does just onboarding, training, development. And maybe that's something that might be suitable for you. So then I was able to go into that role. And from there, I have to say it opened my eyes to so much, because now I was doing the onboarding and all of that, but I was also doing leadership development. So it helped me better understand the dynamics between the leader and employee, right? And how they have to work together. And that's why I put in the kindness, right, in my bio of like, because they have to work well with one another, right? But in that role, I was able to actually support about 12 different hotels all across Southern California. So there's a lot of travel to see how other hotels work. So one big eye opener for anybody getting into the hospitality industry is the hotel, the actual property you work at is so different than the hotel across the street or the hotel down the road, right? And so it's important to, if you want to grow, really expand like your horizon, like really expand what you're looking at. So working at a Courtyard will be different than working at a Marriott brand, but your Marriott brand here in Southern California will look very different if it's 200 rooms versus working at a Marriott in Arizona that's 1,000 rooms, right? The layers are different. The systems might be similar, but they're run or used differently. So working in talent and development and being able to hop around to several hotels really helped me understand that piece of it. From there, I went into, of all things, sales. I jumped from HR into sales.
Wow. That
Yeah,
was a shift.
that was a big shift. A lot of people were like, what are you doing? Why? But I felt like I had a solid base on the guest perspective, coming from front office, a decent knowledge of the associate perspective, right? Because being in training and development and human resources, I was missing the financial piece, right? Because we've always heard this three-legged stool. You can't function unless all three are in a good place. And so the sales was going to help me understand the financial piece. And so again, open, transparent dialogue with my leadership. I remember this conversation very clearly. I was on property at one of the hotels. I had run into the director of finance there, who was my GM at another hotel that I had worked at. And just in passing, he said, "Hey, how's it going?" And I had my elevator speech down. And so I said, "Oh, great to see you again. Yeah, I'm in training and development now, actually looking to get into sales. So we'll see how that goes. But, great to see you. How are your girls?" Right. But I threw it in, then, kept the little chit chat going. About a month later, he emailed me and he said, "Katia, there's a destination sales executive position open, and I think you'd be great for it. How about you apply? I know you have no experience, but, any questions you have, let me know." Right. I was not expecting that in any way whatsoever. I was already going down another path, trying to figure out, like, who do I need to get in front of? What do I need to learn to try to get into sales? Um, but again, because I networked and talked to people, I was able to land this role. Trust me, I went through 6 interviews, so it wasn't easy. but
Wow.
um,
Is that
but
typical?
no, 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 no. Usually it's like 2 interviews, maybe three. But again, I was coming in with no experience, and usually a DSC goes through the sales office first. So you're a coordinator or an assistant, and then you move your way up. But having networked, having a lot of general managers and other stakeholders who could kind of back my work, I think it helped kind of get me to where I was. Um, and then rambling a bit here, but after the DSC position is when I really dove into employee relations, right? Because I knew that the employee piece of that three-legged stool was really where my passion lied. But so as you can see, Jenna, like I went all over the scope in my path to where I am now. But I was able to do so because, hospitality allows that, right? Like we have, kayak instructors in the hospitality world. We have beekeepers of all things, right? So you could really be anything and work in a hotel or resort or in this.
Yeah, and that's incredible. I think that's always the thing that kind of at least takes my breath away as I explored this career path here during the series, is that there's just so much that goes into hospitality management and tourism, and that you can, no matter where you're coming from, like there's a spot here for you, because there's so many different people who all need, that hospitality touch. So I think that's really great. But something that you've mentioned a few times, and I just, want to dive a little bit more into, is this idea of networking or even mentoring. How I always pose it like, how important is networking or mentoring in your field? But I think you've shown that it's so powerful. So I guess really more as, you know, how do you go about networking, right? Or establishing sort of a mentor-mentee relationship with someone? Because I think for a lot of people, mentoring, networking, it's all very intimidating. So, like, how have you been able to push past that or navigate that?
Absolutely. I'll tell you, even now, it's still very intimidating, right? You walk into a room and you're like, "Oh, okay, who do I talk to? How do I talk to them?" Right? Um, it You'll be surprised, or I'll put this out there that anyone will be surprised. People people want to help, right? People want to hear your story, and they more especially people want to tell their story, right? So if you're willing to be a listening ear and hear about, other people's paths, that's a great way to kind of start that networking piece. So I'll say a few different things here. Um, Keep in touch with anyone and everyone who may have been semi-impactful or impactful in your life, right? So what I mean by that is, the professor, maybe you didn't even have the best relationship, in the sense of maybe you weren't the best student, or maybe you struggled here and there. It's okay. They are a professor. They're there to help you, right? They didn't get into that career because they want to push people down, right? They want people to rise up, right? So even if you weren't the best, they might have some paths or opportunities. So just sending that email, right? And if they ghost you, they ghost you. It's okay, right? Send it to handfuls of others, right? And just I think in doing so, reminding them, hey, I was a student in this class, maybe one or two sentences about why they were impactful to you, and then one or two questions about, what is it that you're hoping to gain from this conversation. Even just going and grabbing a coffee, right, and catching up and to see, what's going on in the industry, how are they doing, can be helpful as well, right? Because you'll learn these little nuggets and they'll keep you top of mind. Once you get into the industry, one thing that I personally do, or I try to do, is even if I ran into an individual at a meeting once or a training once, but I just said good morning or we had some small talk, if I ever see them again, I will circle back and I'll say hello, even if they have no idea who I am. 90% of the time, they smile and go, oh, yeah, oh, okay, yeah, that one meeting, right? They don't remember you, you might not, whatever, but it now starts that conversation. And then from there, every book you read, everything you'll see, they all, you do want to avoid some of the typical small talk, but it's okay to compliment something that you see on them. They're wearing a cute scarf, or comment about the food you're eating at the buffet during the meeting, right? Small comments like that will help get the conversation going. And then having that, if you are seeking to grow or to seek a different route, having that elevator pitch, it's so dated. It's something we've been talking about for years, right? But it's true, and it stays alive because it still works. And then the last piece I'll say is yeah, just um, don't be afraid to just ask them about them, right? Even if you don't necessarily let me put it this way, you have a million things you want to say. I want to be a GM, I want to do this, I want to do that, whatever. Take a moment to really just listen to what they have to say. Because you'll be surprised at how many nuggets I've been able to gather from just those casual conversations, to where I can then maybe use that in a conversation with someone else. I'll give you an example. You walk into a room, you talk to a general manager. That general manager is going to have their financials on the spot, be able to speak to that, or they're going to have any big wins. Are they in the top 10 of their market or their region, whatever that looks like, right? You listen, you take that all in, maybe you add a few comments here and there. But let's say now you're in a room with a VP of that region, right? Well, now you have that little nugget of like, oh, well, I heard about blah, blah, blah hotel is in the top 10. Congratulations, that's in your region, right? Blah, 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 right? And so now you're able to kind of take that, elevate that to the next individual or whoever you're talking to. So being a good listener is just as important as sharing your own information, right?
Yeah, no, that's great. I feel like those are like easily digestible tips and tricks, right? So, I think very, very useful, very helpful. But coming back to what I was like, I'll put a pin in it. But another part, right, through any career is the concept of, you know, continuing education or getting to continue to develop skills. So for you, what has your experience with continuing education look like? Or have you been able to join any organizations that assist with that, or how do you go about finding those opportunities for yourself?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, depending on your kind of like your discipline within the hospitality industry, it may vary, but I think there's a few paths that I've taken. So in like in front office, this is where that network also helped, because I would simply ask, my general manager, what training did you do, right? How did you get to where you are? And that's a good other nice breaker too, right? To ask them about that. But and they would guide me, right? Whether it be seeking out certifications, that seems to be kind of big in hospitality. I see a lot more individuals with that, with those certifications in their area. Um, if for the HR side of things, it's understanding what organizations your company already works with. So, for instance, and I'll just spare names here, but for instance, in certain companies, there are some legal or some law firms. right? And some law firms that we already work with. And so from there, I'll seek to see if they have any kind of webinars or trainings or certifications that I could go through to better understand, certain specific, disciplines or segments of the market that we need to know. Other thing is I always like to trust but verify, right? So maybe I'm Googling something and I find all these different certifications or different groups, programs to be a part of. I like to then check against some more credible ones. So let's say, a few different ways I do this. For instance, maybe go to the CLCLB website, right? And check in the CLCLB website, what are some of the things that they partner with, who you partner with, right? Do any of them align? Okay, great. Then I feel a little bit more comfortable and confident going with one of these other sources because I can see that they're somewhat accredited or there's some worth behind that. The other thing is LinkedIn. LinkedIn is huge, right? Searching through LinkedIn, searching through people who hold positions that you want to hold, go through their certification, right? What did they do? What path did they take to determine whether, what other kind of education you're looking to seek out and what programs to be a part of. It's funny because I didn't think this conversation would go or I'd be as heavy on this, but the networking is so big. It's crazy because that's how you learn, right? That's how you learn from other people's experiences and you determine, what programs worked, what programs didn't, what did they like, what didn't they like, and you kind of go from there.
That's great. That's definitely impactful and good ideas. So as far as, different industry trends that we're seeing, one of the trends that I feel like cuts across all different industries, including hospitality, right, is AI and the rise of technology and how that looks different nowadays. So, I'm curious as to your thoughts on the role of AI in the hospitality industry. Is it a good thing, a bad thing? Are the robots coming to take all the jobs? Like, how do you see the role of AI and emerging technologies in your field?
I think it's just going to make our lives easier with a little asterisk, right?
Okay.
um, I'll say when I was on property, so my current role is an above property role, right? So we support all of North America and Latin America. And so we're constantly traveling around and popping our heads into hotels, again, all over the US. I was just in Canada last week. I'll be in Arizona tomorrow, right? So we're all over the place. And this isn't something unique to the US, right? This is something that we see across the board. And yes, while there are some robots that can deliver your food to your guest room or a towel to your guest room, personally speaking, it's great, but it's not something that I see being more than I don't want to use the word gimmick, but it's just something fun, to it's like an amenity that can be added. It's not taking over, right? That type of role, where in hospitality we need to have that personal interaction, right? We need to have that people to people, face to face conversation. And so where technology is going to come in, where AI is going to come in, it's how do we get beyond these outdated systems, right? How can we really allow our guests to have the best experience that they can have? So, for instance, I've now stayed at your hotel 20 times last year, let's say. Great. From AI will now hopefully, right? And many hotels are piloting things like this. We'll take those 20 stays and be able to kind of just blurt out, I like a certain floor. I like a certain, I order dinner at a certain time. I visit certain restaurants, whatever it may be, right? Because it's all interconnected via the apps, via the AI technology would be able to kind of just spit out a report on who is Katia, right? And how can we make Katia's day that much better without us individually having to sit there and go, okay, well, Jenna, what do you like? Okay, let me write that down. Or Jenna, will you fill out this 12-page survey of all the things you like, right? That's where AI is going to help. And then all the back of house stuff, right? All the reporting, the right, I'll tell you, I use we have Copilot, Microsoft Copilot, right? I use it to sum up some of my P&L reporting, or sum up some of my employee reporting that I got to take a look at, the metrics, right? And I use that as a baseline. I don't just turn that in, right? I use it as a baseline to then be able to determine what's the next step in our strategy, or how do we need to execute against this. But that saves me like so much time in having to read through all of that information. And always, though, I'm still at a point of trusting but verifying, right? Because AI is only as good as the input. So, but all in all, to say AI is not going to take over our industry. Maybe others, but not ours.
Very encouraging, I think, for folks who are looking to explore a career in hospitality. So it's always going to be a people centered one, I think, is what I'm hearing.
100%. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Don't get me wrong, though. Sorry, let me throw this in there, Jenna.
Sure,
Don't get me
sure,
wrong.
sure.
Those who want to get into technology, don't forget, we have IT programs. We have individuals who need to create and build these amazing programs to be able to execute and work with the hospitality. So hospitality isn't just for the people who want to be in front of others, right? The people, right? This is also for, we still are a corporate, or, we still are industries that run off of programs and technology. And so we still need those people who have a passion for that to be there to help us support the larger industry. So just want to throw that in there.
No, an important little asterisk there, and I'm glad you did.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as these things always fly by for me, but as we are getting close to the end of our chat, I want to ask, or maybe even just kind of expand upon something that you already touched on, but a question that I always love to ask at the end of the chats, which is, if you could go back and have a conversation with yourself right when you were graduating from CSULB, um, what major pieces of advice would you give yourself? And is that still the same advice you would give to somebody who's looking to graduate right now?
Good question. Let's see. The advice I'd give myself at the time of graduation would be, um, you know, be curious. Be curious. Don't get caught up in just one lane, right? Maybe if you have your passion and so for instance, maybe our culinarians know that that's what they want to do. That is, they're going to dedicate their life to being the best culinarian ever, right? Great, amazing. But that's not the case for many of us, right? We don't know what we want to do. So if I could go back, it would just be continue to be curious. There were moments that I think I may have paused or even not jump, I didn't jump in fully for the fear of I don't know, or I'm not sure, can I even, right? All those question marks came into play that, you know, um, in the end, shouldn't have even factored in, right? This imposter syndrome, don't worry about it. Just push through, right? Like be curious and be confident, I guess would be the two things I would tell myself. And yes, I do think that applies to current, right? Confidence, but humble, right? Confidence isn't arrogance. Confidence is knowing your worth. Confidence is knowing what you've done, where you've succeeded, but also ensuring that you remain deferential to those who have more experience than you. You have a degree, and that's amazing, and that's going to help you along the way. Don't forget that there are individuals who have 30 years working in the industry, right? And so being curious about what knowledge they have that you may have not gotten in the classroom, right? So then you want to learn more. But yeah, being curious and being confident, I think, are the two things that I would tell myself.
Yeah. No, that's great. Well, Katia, thank you so much for your time today. I think that there's been a lot of great pieces, little nuggets of wisdom in your story, and a lot of great things that folks can take away from it. So, just want to say thank you so much for sharing that with us.
Of course. Thanks for having me. Appreciate being
Yeah,
here.
absolutely. And for those of you who have joined us, either live or from home or your office or wherever it is, I really want to say thank you to you as well. And you can Always follow us. We always encourage you to follow us on any of our social media chat platforms. We're at CSULB alumni on all platforms. Again, you can find this recording as well as the others from the series at our website, www.csulb.edu/alumni. And if you want to learn more about how you yourself can get a degree here at the beach, that can help you in the hospitality management or tourism field, we encourage you to check out our awesome department, the hospitality management program. And you can reach them at hospitalitymanagement@csulb.edu with any questions or with to ask them for information on how you can pursue your own degree in that. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. And until next time, we'll see you. Bye.
Thank you.